Thank you for plugging into this Family Life News podcast, streaming issues-driven, family-focused news.
This is Faith Under Fire. Each Thursday on Family Life, we give voice to religious battlegrounds in this nation. I'm your host, Tracy Lynn. With us today, former school counselor, Kerry McMillan. So, Kerry, there is a battle going on that takes aim at our young people in the context of gender and sexuality. Even now, bills in legislative committee would mandate comprehensive sex ed in all New York public schools starting in kindergarten. Kerry, would you give us a quick snapshot of what this would expose children to at various age levels?
Absolutely. So these bills would mandate sex ed to align with the national sex ed standards. And just a few examples of those standards, starting in kindergarten, when a child is 5, they're taught that they're not necessarily boys and girls, but get to choose their gender identity based on how they feel inside. And they're taught a whole bunch of options such as transgender, agender, genderqueer, non-binary, and many more. And then in 3rd grade, when a child's 8, they're taught about puberty-blocking drugs for transgender children. They're also taught about age-inappropriate topics like masturbation in the classroom, and they're expected to define and explain differences among different gender terms like cisgender, gender non-binary, gender expansive, and so on. Starting in 6th grade, so when a child's 11, they're taught about all types of sex and the use of sex toys even, and they begin to discuss abortion and pornography as well in the classrooms. They're also trained to be LGBTQ activists, so the learning standards actually specify that they want all kids to advocate for all gender identities by creating school-wide advocacy plans. And then in high school, yes, it's very concerning. Ugh. And then in high school, they go more in depth. For example, one curriculum I was looking at had the children in the classroom viewing pornographic magazine covers with their peers, and then they were asked to have a discussion about how sex is used to sell, but they were having them actually look at the pornography to do that.
Wow, this is shocking, and those in our listening area that are moms and dads need to know what's being pushed at the national level and now in New York State. Would you preview the bills that are now under consideration in the New York State Legislature?
Sure. So these are aligning sex ed with the national sex ed standards, and those standards are created by leftist advocacy groups, one of which is SECUS, whose slogan is Sex Ed for Social Change. So you can go right to their website and see that this is their goal, to change society's view of sex, gender, abortion, and even more through sex ed. And the bills state specifically they want sex ed to be age-appropriate, medically accurate, and inclusive of all students, which sounds great. However, from actually reading the standards and looking at the programs that come from this, it's truly not any of those things. It's age-inappropriate, teaching kids about all types of sex at very early ages, teaching them that they might even be ready to consent to sex as early as 11 years old. It completely avoids any discussion or benefits of abstinence, and they even declare themselves to be sex positive, so they don't want to discuss abstinence in a positive light. It's also not medically accurate because it tells kids that their gender often changes throughout adolescence, which is not true, and it rejects the gender binary. So this is inherently not inclusive of all students who disagree with these perspectives on gender and on sexuality.
Wow, Kerry, as Christians who believe that God created the world, including male and female humans, how can we respond most effectively in this battle for the next generation?
Ephesians 4:15 says, instead, speaking the truth in love. And that's what we think is most important, is to speak truth, example love, and then take all steps that you can to protect the kids in your life. Many families are increasingly choosing to homeschool or send their kids to a private Christian school if they can. And this is a really great step to take. Unfortunately, public schools have become less safe for Christian children and for all children. And so definitely those three things: speaking truth, exempling love, and then taking steps you can to protect kids from this ideology.
You were talking about one of the groups that's behind this National Sex Ed Standards. I guess people can look it up at futureofsexed.org. There were several groups there. You could see there's a very clear agenda, very much a pro-abortion agenda as well. Any advice for our listeners where they can go? Maybe they can learn about these bills. I think it's S2584A in the Senate of New York, and in the Assembly, the measure is A6616.
Yes, and they can check out one of our websites. So I'm working with a nonprofit called Feed My Sheep Foundation just to try to get this information out to parents as best we can. And we're posting some videos and information on one of our project websites, which is sexualholocaust.org. But I think the most comprehensive website specifically for learning more about comprehensive sex ed is called stopcse.org. That stands for Comprehensive Sexuality Education. So stopcse.org.
Thank you for being a Daniel, a modern-day Daniel, standing up really against the flow. Kerry, I was looking at some of the state sex ed standards from 10 years ago, and it's so radically different in just the 10 years.
Yeah, it really is, and it's been creeping in. I went to my local school board to speak about this, and they were really kind and receptive to the information, but they were saying, oh, well, this isn't going to pass. And this, unfortunately, it's already in our schools, even if this doesn't pass. For example, when I was working at the school, the gender information was being taught under the guise of bullying prevention. And so as bullying prevention, they were going into classes to teach gender as a spectrum, and these are the different gender terms. And it's not about treating everyone with respect. It's about adopting this new ideology, which is just really unfortunate for kids. So it's here now, and this would just expand it and make it really difficult to really be in the public schools anymore.
That's former school counselor Kerry McMillan. I'm Tracy Lynn, Family Life News.